state championship game. A really, really good performance for you guys against St. James. Just kind of starting with your reaction to that game. How well you guys played and to be back in the Dome.
Well, I thought our guys went out and laid it on the line Friday night. We talked about they were, the game to get to the game. And so I thought our kids played really well. We were really excited about it. And second half was phenomenal and excited about going back to the Dome.
When we talked at the start of the year, you said, hey, look, we got a lot of work to do. Was there a week in particular where you really saw this team start to click that you could pick out and say, hey, look, we're going to be a really good team again?
Well, I think, our performances against Ouachita and Neville, those guys played each other in the semis last week. Really good football teams. I thought we hung in there and battled with them, all the way to the very end in both football games. And I had a feeling if we could hang with those guys and have opportunities to win that game and at the end of it there, then we'd be fine in our division.
Looking at this year, I want to ask you, how important has this O-line been and what you've seen from this group throughout, not just the playoffs but the regular season? I feel like this group's been really dominant this year.
Yeah, it's been a really, really good offensive line. We put a lot of work in our offensive line, put a lot of resources in it. We have 3 guys that work with our offensive line, and that's the meeting room right there. I think every guy that wants to be a head coach needs to coach offensive line in his career. I just think it's a great thing. You're taking the guys that really nobody else wants, and you can really motivate them guys, and nobody does it better than our guys do. And, we're just so proud of them.
And the defense has obviously been stellar. You mentioned it in the second half. I think you guys were kind of right there neck and neck, and you come out and you drop, I think, 3 touchdowns in, the first couple minutes. Defense does really well to force some turnovers. But what you've seen from that group just kind of as they continue to grow into what they are?
Well, they're getting better. They've gotten better every week since the playoff starts. And we changed some things up at halftime. I think our defensive staff did a great job at halftime and kind of limited what they could do. But they're doing a really good job, and, I let them guys coach and do their thing, and they're doing a great job.
Last year, you guys went through the ups and downs at times early on, the adversity, and by the end of it, you talked about it as kind of the masterpiece of being able to grow the way y'all did over the course of the season. Still a last chapter to be written for this team later on this week, but how would you describe just the overall identity or storyline to this point for this year's group?
Well, I think this team is top to bottom further ahead now than we were last year at this time. We hit a peak last year right at the right time, and I think we're doing the same thing now. But the teams are very similar. And we did have a few more losses last year earlier in the year because we had a lot of injuries, and we overcame those and got some kids back last year at the end of the year that made us really good. And we've been so lucky this year with the injuries, so I think that's the biggest thing.
When you talk about being further along, that's just, execution and being clean and stuff like that?
Yeah, and we got some depth this year, and we didn't have any depth last year. And, our running backs and our skill folks are deeper than they've been since I've been here, so it's made it nice.
You guys obviously know Gina. You saw him last year in the semis. You and Jay, I think, know each other pretty well. When you look at that team and the challenges they present, what kind of stands out about the matchup?
Well, the first thing I want to say is how much respect I have for Jay and all those coaches down there in that program. I think they're doing a great job. So, first thing about that is we'll play them with a lot of respect, no doubt about it. I think they're better than they were last year, offensively and defensively. I've seen some really big strides watching film from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, especially defensively. The running backs run hard. Quarterback you can tell he's a winner. They got the big wide out outside that does a good job, and they always have big bodies. Defensively, I think they run a little bit better, and they play some things differently than they've been playing. So, we got our work cut out for us. I mean, these guys are hungry, and, we've been there, done that. And, I've been there on the other end of it where they are, and we won a game we weren't supposed to. So we're not taking them lightly at all.
And you two are 2 of 8 teams from this area code that are going down there. It's, I think, the biggest contingent from the 318 we've had in New Orleans in a few years at least. What does that say about, Northeast Louisiana or just, North Louisiana as a whole to be able to have this many teams playing in the final weekend?
Well, I think it's great for, this area up here. I think north of I-10 is like 25% of the population in Louisiana, so to have 50% of the schools represented down there is pretty big. And I think I got that off of K104, by the way. So, but yeah, I think that's awesome. And but I think people down south, you know, I talk with some people down there a lot, and most of them will tell you that Northeast Louisiana produces really good football, and I don't think it's a big surprise to most people in the state.